Hi, Saints. I am so happy to be back here with you all as you all continue to have important and necessary conversations about the struggles and the triumphs of Black women. This series has been so impactful, highlighting the facts, sharing the stories, identifying calls to action, and we're going to continue that today. And I'm also super happy that we are joined by Coach Gann, who is going to offer some amazing and important commentary as well, as we outline what access, support, opportunities, and resources are needed to bring about meaningful change. But nobody knows about the goals of this campaign better than all of you. So Demario, I'll start with you. Tell me, what was the original goal of this campaign?
Yeah, thanks for that, and thanks for being back with us. This has been an amazing campaign. When you look at all that is going on in the social justice space, and so many people feeling oppressed or underrepresented, so many of us, I think, identify with that, and we wanted to find a way to collectively come together and bring awareness or shine light in an area that wasn't necessarily light being shined on. And up on there, we found out what was going on with the Say Her Name campaign, and with so much going on around police brutality and a lot of Black men coming to the forefront, we realized in stories like Breonna Taylor, that was a representation of itself, where many African American women are being underrepresented. And so when you have all these male faces that are out front talking about police brutality, what about the justice of the Black females? And in that, we realized, man, this is a whole, that opened up a whole web of understanding. It's so many areas inside of our society where Black women are being underrepresented or not being talked about and just kind of left behind. And a big reason of that is because oftentimes when you think about sexism, you think the women are being taken care of. When you think about racism, you think, all the Black people are being taken care of, where what we realized is at that intersectionality where racism meets sexism, that's a crossroads that's just not being, talked about or represented. And in here in that space, we wanted to shine a light on that. And we talked about it in different spaces, whether it was in education or in healthcare or in domestic violence or Black women in media. And so we really wanted to just highlight a lot of that. We wanted to bring in and talk to experts such as yourself, Maria, Tasha Cloud, Dr. Hayward, and so many others, and so many of the wonderful ladies that we've had on during this entire process. I think it was great for us as players to be able to learn, because before you can advocate on anyone's behalf, you have to learn. You have to listen and you have to learn. And so it's been amazing for us to be able to listen and learn, hear from so many respected women, respected Black women, powerful voices, just to be able to understand a lot of the issues that have gone on for so long, and to help highlight that and then find ways that we can actively apply ourselves and help and bring about change.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And, Drew, for you, when you think about the goal of this campaign, how have you seen, some of those goals been hit and, manifest themselves in the content that you guys are putting out?
Yeah, well, I think each week, we've highlighted a different story. And I think that really brings it to life when you can actually see the face, hear the name, hear the story. I think it really begins to resonate with a lot of people in regards to, these are real life stories, and these are real names, and these are real families, and these are real issues that are facing our communities.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that some people, may see the campaign and wonder, why did you all decide to focus on Black women specifically? So I want you guys to be able to respond to that and say, why Black women? And I'll start with you, Cam.
I mean, I think Double D sort of covered that when he first initially said it. It's like, if sexism is taking care of all women, if racism is sort of referred to as all, one people, whether it be, clearly in this space we're talking about the Black people, the African American people, then it's like the perception is, it's like, well, Black men, you automatically jump to George Floyd and exactly what happened there. It's like we talk about sexism, and so we talk about women in general. But what we really are sort of, I guess, now understanding is we left out the idea that it's not women, it's not Black, it's Black women have sort of fell through that space. And this has sort of shown that spotlight of how it's like there's been something that hasn't been talked about, and it's you guys. It's the Black women around. It's the women who are in workforce. It's so many different parts of it. The women and the police relations. You know, you talk about everything from Breonna Taylor to even the youngest one being, you know, Ayanna Stanley Jones. It's like that just doesn't get talked about enough, and this shows a light to that.
Yeah, for sure. And Coach Gann, you have dedicated so much, of your life to the progression and advancement of Black people. When you heard about this campaign and the focus on Black women, what was the first thing that came to your mind as to why that's so important?
What first came to my mind was, I'm a little older, and I think about, where I come from. I'm from Louisiana. So I thought about how strong Black women was back then. Coming from the South, we didn't look at, I was raised by women. So, and all I knew was a strong Black woman, which was my grandparents. And when I say, how did we slip from that? How do we slip for the respect of African-American women and the strength that they had? So when I heard about it, I kind of went back to a childhood, and I thought about how strong my grandmother was and how she raised us on the farm, where my grandfather was just put on a shirt and tie every day. You know what I'm saying? Where my grandmother was washing clothes in the fields, washing clothes by hand and cooking and doing all the things that probably a man should be able to do. So I just kind of thought about how do we slip, and I was excited about, with the coalition here, stepping up and stepping out for Black women.
Sure. I think one of the really cool things about this is everybody learns, right? There are things that I heard in the conversations that I was a part of that I learned so many things, and you learn things, then you bring them to others. So I'm curious, have your conversations and experiences that you've had in this campaign led to some outside impactful conversations with Black women or about Black women? I would love for all of you to answer, but I'll start with you, Thomas.
Just inside of my immediate family, seeing the campaigns that you've attached your name to and your time to listen and learn. That's had some pretty interesting conversations at the house, just with my wife in particular. And then, there's a few people in our organization that, I wouldn't feel comfortable saying who they are, but people that I care about, that I've had conversations with that are Black females, that I, when you kind of understand that, hey, there's different things that you didn't realize were a thing, and you start having questions about it, they've kind of, poured out a lot of, kind of frustration or things that they've dealt with in their life that they never talked about before. And it kind of hits you like a ton of bricks when it's somebody you care about. And so I would just say that, that's my answer to that.
Yeah. And I think that that's what makes it important is you're really understanding it because you're seeing it, in your lives. Have any of you had some similar experiences to that?
Yeah. I want to kind of go back to what you asked about why Black women.
Mm-hmm.
And I think OG Ginn did a good job of taking it back. I think so many of us have seen Black women be pillars in our community. I was raised by my grandma very early on, and then it was just me and my mom for a long point. And my grandmother had 10 kids, and when you see one woman kind of holding down a whole family, and everybody standing like on this pillar, I think it just kind of takes you back, even if you think about the history of our country. When slavery was going on, they were breaking the men from their families. And so you take away the head, and who you think is there to take care of the tribe? It was still the moms. And then when the white people were having babies, who do you think were raising the kids? They would bring the black mamas in to breastfeed and raise the kids. So essentially, Black women are the mothers of America. Though they are the essence of queenship, the essence of being a backbone, strong pillar is represented in the Black woman. And we should never move away from that. And I think, like, especially in the Black community, we've seen that so much of how strong the Black woman is because of how strong she's had to be. And in the midst of all this going on, to see like that they're, you know, kind of moving under the radar, things on us as men, especially Black men, to make sure that that doesn't continue to happen and never happens again. You know, even something I learned in this, like, why don't we naturally go in spaces and look around and see that there's an absence of Black women? And when we notice that, we should be using our voices to say, hey, there needs to be more Black women in these spaces. And so if they mean so much to us in our communities, why would we ever walk in a space and see them absent and not bring awareness to that? And so I just think, like, when you think about the history, the way that we were raised, and then everything that we're learning now, I think it just should change our trajectory and how we think and how we act. I know, like, now I walk in every space and I can immediately count how many Black women are in these spaces. You know, and so it's the same, like, noticing there are not enough women in these spaces, but specifically Black women. And so, and I think when we are in those spaces and we notice that, we have to use our voices to advocate on that behalf to make sure that there's proper representation.
Yes, for sure. You touched on something that I think is one of the most important parts of this campaign, which is awareness, but also responsibility. You know, I think the way that you spoke to Black women historically have almost always had to advocate for themselves. And I think that we have, for a long time, you know, taught men or taught people not to disrespect, as opposed to, you know, teaching women. Like, we should teach men not to disrespect as opposed to teaching women how to deal with being disrespected. I think we should kind of switch that responsibility and switch who that burden is on. So, you know, as men, what have you learned about responsibility throughout this campaign, and what you can do to, you know, be more of an ally to women? And I'll start with you, Drew.
Sure. Well, you know, part of going through this process, and I think something that really surprised me, when you look at the statistics of Black women are so much more likely to be a victim of violence in their community, so much more likely to be a victim of police brutality or death, so much more likely to not have opportunities in the workplace, or to be underpaid in the workplace, or to be underrepresented in government or in leadership positions. And so, just like Demario said, I think it's that awareness now that when you walk into various situations, or you walk into various spaces, and you immediately look around and you say, is everyone represented here that should be represented? And in most cases, that answer is no. And in most cases, it is because there is a lack of having Black females here that should be here, deserve to be here. And I think that's where I think all of us, as we continue to identify those problems and then the solutions that go along with that, Black women deserve to be represented, need to be represented in all those spaces.
For sure. Terron, what about you? How has that awareness manifested itself in your life because of this campaign?
I think awareness is the key. First and foremost, just bringing that awareness and raising that conversation. When this campaign first started, just talking to Demario and Malcolm, Cam, Drew, Craig, Timo, it was so much that I didn't know, and that don't make it okay. It's not acceptable to be ignorant about a whole body of people that are extremely influential, and especially the way I was brought up, the way I was raised. My grandmother was everything, and you know, so she get the utmost respect from my family, my peers, the community, but just throughout the country, the lack of awareness, her absence in the workplace, her absence in so many different spaces, is just a necessity. So me not knowing or not paying enough attention to it is not acceptable. And as I've learned and educated myself throughout this process, I just think that that awareness, keep bringing that conversation up, keep speaking up for, you know, I think that's my responsibility, to be the one to advocate for Black women.
Sure. Craig, what about you? Tell me the most interesting thing throughout this campaign you have heard or learned.
I would probably say learn, and I kind of piggyback on awareness, just because it's a point of, you know, us as Black men, we spend so much time trying to figure out things for us, right? And so we spend so much time as a kid growing up, like how to not be the next male stat, you know? And so you spend all that time thinking about it and you totally forget about Black women. And so I'm with Terron. I can agree with what he said. You know, it almost gets to a point where you don't want to feel ignorant because you've forgotten a whole body of people, you know, trying to, you know, figure out, well, how do I protect myself? And when women have been going through this even more than us, you know, and I think that's just been the biggest thing, is just educating myself and learning to be an ally, you know, for Black women, you know, like my mom, my wife, like people that I'm close to, you know, just having that convo, like, man, like I spent so much trying to educate myself about being a Black man that I didn't educate myself enough about learning about Black women. So that's been the greatest thing that I've learned from all this.
Absolutely. You know, Coach Gann, I want to bring you in here because something that is really important, something I've thought a lot about just throughout this time, is how many things begin when we're young, and how important it is to teach people about certain ideals and certain experiences that are different than theirs when they're young. I know you do a lot of work with young boys. Tell me about that work and how you are, you know, incorporating the importance of respecting Black women into that work.
Well, you know, and like once again, I'm always gonna start by saying I'm a little older. You know, I listen to what everybody said about the awareness of Black women. You know, with me having a school, being in the inner city, you know, you have a lot of different dysfunctions, far as, you know, women, and a lot of women, Black women are raising boys. So, you know, a lot of times we have situations where the boys don't understand the mother, you understand? So I was raised by nothing but women. So that excuse about a man don't work with me, you know, because I was raised by strong Black women that was stronger than my father, stronger than my grandfather, stronger than anybody. So I find myself teaching young men all the time about the respect of your mother, you understand, which is Black, that's probably struggling, you know. But I think that, and I try to explain to the children that a woman is the strongest person on earth other than us as a man. You know, women can do things that none of us can really do, you know. So I teach them every day to respect your mother, respect Black women, and just women, period. Because society is not teaching that. You know, everybody's chasing money, fame, and all these different things. And we have forgotten about one of the strongest people in the world. I don't know nobody, and this, I'm just keeping it real. I've been without my mother since I was 19. And I've found anybody that's stronger than my mother and my grandmother. You understand? Not my father, not my grandfather. So the awareness that we have to teach young people is that that mother is the most important and the strongest person on earth. And that's why I keep saying, where did we slip? Because I didn't see none of this as a kid coming up. All I knew was strong Black women, because that's what I was raised by. So I teach children every day to respect, to value your mother and to value women, because social media is killing us. And I'm just telling you.
Well, just out of curiosity, because I know that is a thing that you have said, which is, where did we slip? I know you don't know the answer, but where do you think a change kind of happened? And I ask that because I want to know how, people could stop it from changing more.
Well, this is what we got to go back. See, nobody's sitting at the table anymore. See, most of us was raised, my age, was raised by the kitchen table, where that was your information center. And we forgot about that. You know what I'm saying? That's what's missing in society, period. So we got to get back to the table and start teaching the core values and the respect, because you couldn't negotiate that table, and that's what I do as a school, as a football program, as a track program. I set tables. Even though it's the sport or it's the school, it's an opportunity to engage and to teach the core values of life and all these different things. And that's what's slipping, because we don't respect anybody, because it's nobody sitting at the table anymore. Because we all guilty of that. You understand? I mean, you didn't, and I know Double D and them know this. You know what time to be at the table, and grandma was at the head of that bad boy. You understand? And you didn't have a watch. You got to look up at the sun and knew what time to get to the table, because it's time for your information and your direction. That's what's missing in the world, period. So.
I agree with you. Brother Ginn. When you talk about it, I always think like I'm an old soul, so I can rationalize with that to the T. I think a big part, just like you said, where we went wrong is the structure of the family.
Right.
Like when you have, dinner time as a family, or when you have a family structure inside of a family structure, even if the woman has to be the head of the structure, there's structure in the household. Now, ideally, you would want, the husband and the wife to be the head, but in some houses, that's not the case. But when there is structure, what people tend to have is order. And everybody on this phone done ask their mama or their grandma, why I gotta do this? Because I said so. That's order. That means I know my place. And what has happened in society is when nobody has order or there's no head, that person becomes the head. And so you got 14, 15-year-olds walking out the house thinking they the head. They ain't finna answer to no teacher. They ain't finna answer to nobody but themselves. And when everybody running around as they the chief, we all know too many chiefs, not enough Indians, so they don't know how to fall into place. And that's what I think in agreement with you. And it makes sense when you say that we got to get back to stronger families, and that's what we need to be encouraging these young boys to do, understanding, because I idolizing you, OG Ginn. I work with young boys too, with the Devoted Dreamers, and that's what we teach. We teach our young men how to date. Like don't just be out here dating, trying to take advantage of these girls. You need to understand that one day you're gonna have to be a husband, and how to build a family. And that family, everybody in the house gonna be counting on you. And so you got to know how to protect yourself, protect your wife, protect your children. And out here acting recklessly, you would just be another statistic and create more statistics. And so we got to get back to that structure, just like you said, Brother Ginn. And in that structure, when you have that order, and they listen, like how all those young men listen to you when you come in and say, hey, we're going to respect women. And they like, why are we doing that? Because I said so, and this is how we doing things. That creates order. And in the same time, you're teaching them understanding. And even if they don't understand why now, they'll understand it later. And I think we'll create a better world in that way.
Absolutely. And I mean, going off that, there are so many, different types of families. There's single mom households, single dad households, moms, dads, mom and dads. There's so many different kinds. And so for those of you that are raising children, what are you doing at home for them to understand, some of the things that we're talking about in this conversation and some of the things that, this campaign has centered on for those of you that are dads?
If I could jump in, the first thing I'd say is, you model for your kids, especially your sons, how to treat a woman by the way that you treat your wife. And so first and foremost, regardless of anything that you say, you model with your actions how you treat your wife, how you love your wife, the affection that you show your wife, the respect that you give your wife. Your sons will see that and hopefully emulate that. Also, one of the best pieces of advice that I ever got about your daughter, which I have one daughter, she's 6 years old, is that you, in essence, date your daughter, right? As she grows up, you should be treating her the way that she should feel about the way that her husband will eventually treat her, or the people that she will date will need to treat her. And so I've always tried to think about that with everything that I do, especially with my kids watching, is I'm going to treat my wife the way that I want to model to them to treat their wives someday. And then I'm going to date my daughter. I'm going to treat her the way that other men should treat her when she grows up. That should be her expectation level. And if it's not, she knows to get out of that situation. But I think at the end of the day, that is, because this is a very overwhelming subject, right? And I recognize too that so many people are raised in different environments and with different family structures, like have been mentioned. You'd say, unfortunately, the majority of our country is probably raised in a single parent household, or with a different variety of people raising them. It's not just a husband and a wife. There's grandparents involved, there might be uncles involved, and there might just be a single family or a single parent. But regardless, I think the first thing you do, especially as a man, is model those things with the way that you act, the way you treat your wife, and by dating your daughter.
Yeah, I think that this initiative is one of the big things that can really help people, understand and give us other ways to learn about things that are important. So, Demario, why did partnering with the African American Policy Forum matter in this campaign?
Well, I've been working in this social justice space for a minute, and the thing that I've found, what helps best as an advocate or an amplifier of messaging is working with people that have credibility and working with experts in the spaces. The way we are able to be to have great impact in games is because we are experts at our craft. We've spent so many hours in these spaces. You know how disrespectful it would be for us to spend a month or 2 months or just the year of 2020 learning about all these social justice issues and then coming in and talking like we're experts. It would be disrespectful to all the experts who've been working for years in these spaces. Very similar to when we're talking about impacting the next generation, listening to a legend like OG Ginn, who've been doing it so long, we all in a position to learn. So that's what we wanted to do. We wanted to highlight what was going on in the Black community, particularly with Black women. So we wanted to reach out to an expert that had been in that space. And that's why we wanted to take on a name that they had created, which is Say Her Name, which was centered around Breonna Taylor, but was also bringing awareness to all the other Black women who had been slain at the hand of police officers, and giving all those victims and their families a space, but also bringing awareness to the greater piece, which is the intersectionality of it all, and how Black women are just traditionally left out of spaces and how that is happening. And so being able to bring in a partner with a group that has done so much in this space, to be able to partner with a hero like that and to be able to align with them and help amplify what is essentially their messaging, working alongside the Players Coalition, we have just found that that is how you really help impact change from a legislation standpoint, bringing awareness to the citizens, is using our platform to help amplify messaging that already exists. And that messaging is solid because it is formed by masters of the trade, experts in the field who have done the studying, the research, and gotten all the data for years and decades and even centuries, so that when we go forth in our messaging, it's concrete. And it has been nothing but a blessing to work with the Say Your Name campaign and the speakers that they have aligned us with, and that they have been all phenomenal in all the fields that we've been able to listen and learn from. And so just like we've been trying to bless everyone else in having bring awareness around something that wasn't being talked about and using our platform to do that, it's been a blessing to us because we ourselves need to be enriched by this information.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is my last question for each of you. But, you know, the Saints have one of the most loyal fan bases, huge platform. And you guys are really providing them with, you know, a diversity of experience, some new knowledge, some different things for them to learn about life and things that maybe haven't impacted them directly. So what do you want your fans and people watching this to walk away with? What do you want them to have learned from? And also, what is your message to the Black women that have also watched this campaign? And I'll start with you, Craig.
You know, I wouldn't want I want anybody to walk away just from hearing this to just understand that it's been a struggle to even get to this point, you know, and the thing is just everybody having open ears is the biggest thing. So just how the fan has been committed to the Saints for such a long time, to be committed to this issue with just that same energy. You know, we're not asking for this or that. We're just asking for commitment. Just if the Saints win or lose, they're still Saints fans. That's how we want us to feel about us as individuals and us as we're following this initiative of following Black women.
Pretty much exactly what Craig said. You know, the awareness first, but don't just stop there. Try to educate yourself more and more. And then if you're moved to, put your energy, your time and energy and resources into trying to make a difference. And to Black women, you know, just letting them know that we love them and at the pinnacle of respect, at the utmost respect.
Yeah, I mean, it would go into the same sentiments as Terron just said. It would be more along the lines of, I hope this does nothing but bring more understanding and sort of, if you will, spark something that could become bigger in terms of interest. I hope it reaches a lot of ears and a lot of hearts, because you can always hear something, but if you're not willing to actually listen to it and not only entertain this idea, but let it process through you, then there was no point of you even hearing it to begin with. So as long as you're able to digest this information, which could lead to, you know, you wanting to know more, because there's so much more that goes deeper than what we've been able to do over the course of this season. And understand that there's, you know, not only the plight of the Black woman, but there's so much more that's going on than what we can cover. Once it sort of becomes your own learning, becomes your own understanding, then it can become your own passion. And that's something that, you know, I hope brings more than just what you're hearing or what you're learning or whatever it is that's skin deep. I encourage people to go deeper than what we've been able to present.
I would say, I think there's a lot of people out there that roll their eyes at certain issues because they don't live in an environment where they see it. And it seems like some foreign thing. Is if you have somebody that you care about, that's close to you, or maybe it's just a friend or somebody at work or or somebody that you see at the gym every so often, is to, maybe have an open mind. I think the one thing you can do is have a conversation with somebody, ask a question. Hey, I was watching this with the Saints. They did this thing. I mean, has that ever happened to you, or is that a way you've ever felt? And I think if everybody were to just have one conversation outside of their kind of comfort zone, with somebody that they have a meaningful level of trust with, that they felt like they could, take a small chance to do that. I think if people were to do that, they may be surprised at some of the experiences of people that they really didn't know existed. And I think that's the hardest part, because once you have just a little bit of your mind open to, wow, that happened, what else is there, then it's an avalanche, and it's kind of easier after that. I think it's the hardest part is just having an initial conversation that can be a little uncomfortable. And like I said, I think if you're fortunate enough to have somebody in your life that maybe doesn't look like you, that you could feel comfortable enough to just, try to get a little bit of, just any dialogue going. I think it would be good. And not only would be good for this movement, but I think it would be good for you in your own life, right? I mean, I think there'd be nothing worse than being an old person one day and thinking the same way you thought when you were 30 years younger, right? You haven't grown at all. You haven't learned. And so I guess that would just be a challenge, I think, that everybody should look at.
Yeah, I mean, so many great statements there. I think even just to kind of equate to what Thomas just said is breaking the seal. I think that first question or that first conversation, I think for a lot of people, hopefully you walk away from this conversation feeling very empowered that you know what, I have a chance to be a part of the solution here. I have a chance to, by educating myself, by having these conversations, opening up my eyes, my ears, my thoughts, to kind of a whole new world of understanding and compassion. And I think at the end of the day, we all have a great responsibility. And like as I sit here and listen to OG again talk, I'm it's hard not to think about all the people that he has influenced in his life, right? All the lives that he's had a chance to touch, all the young men and women, I'm sure, along the way. And it gives me great hope to know that we have obviously great leaders on this call, but hopefully we're inspiring another generation of great leaders as well. And if we continue to have these touch points, just think about how that knowledge and that understanding and that love can spread. There's that saying that it takes a village. We all have a chance to be part of that village, to help raise the next generation and to bring us to a time where truly we can say that there is equality, and truly we can say that there is justice, and truly we can say that we are all in this together. But it starts with us all being allies and being there for one another.
I think at the end of the day, I just want people to see, like, it's just not that hard to do the right thing. It's not. It's as simple as finding an area that you want to help, and just opening your ears, as Craig said, and listening. See something that you think, that don't seem right, that ain't right, and just listen in, like lean in, listen in, become aware, and then you'll be able to identify what's wrong, and then your heart will take over from there. How can I help this situation? This is us just trying to use our platform to shine light on an area that's just not being talked about as much as it should, and bringing our queens to the forefront. And so that's just another way of doing the right thing. It's just a way of doing the right thing. And I think, just taking time to learn more about, get outside of ourselves is what we got to do. We got to get outside of ourselves. We can't just be looking at us and the things that we want and what we're trying to accomplish. As Craig talked about, that's easy to do, especially when you live in a life of what feels like survival. Like, how do I survive? But it's not until you stop and look around you and see what it is that you're missing that you can become aware of somebody else's situation, and you probably possess the tools to help their situation. And that's going to bring you a lot more joy and blessings than you would ever be able to just bring yourself. And so, yeah, I think I just want people to be encouraged that, you know, doing the right thing isn't that hard, and we all can do it. And we all need to be a part of the solutions.
Well, you know, I think my thing would be, I like to applaud you all. I think that, you know, the New Orleans Saints, which y'all know I love y'all dearly, you understand? I think that I like to applaud you all, you know, for your courage and your service, because that's what it really is. You have set a table over the last few weeks that people can sit and eat from, with it bringing the awareness to what really need to be talked about. And I think the courage that you all had, you know, it makes me have goosebumps. You understand? So my thing would be, thank God for your service and and showing, because we all are responsible to serve. You know, Jesus died on the cross and he left a light into all of us. That was the gift. And the gift is to serve. And you've been the example in the last few weeks of bringing awareness to the world that people just overlook. But you're really doing a great job, and that's your job, and that's your responsibility. So I really want to applaud you for that. And then I will finish with this. We're all dealing with something that we can't see, which is the COVID-19. You understand? So it's going to take someone that we can't see to open it back up. Thank you. God bless you. And go Saints.